And then we want to go ahead and add an impulse to the mesh. So to get the value for the impulse, we can drag off the kick location and add, let's say, multiply. Right click this pin, convert to float single precision, set this to something like 40,000. Then we can drag off this pin and say break vector. Drag off the X pin, make vector net quantize. So I've already sort of discussed the details of this in a previous video, right? And then we can connect the Y pin as well and just set the Z value to something like 60,000. And this can be the value for the impulse. So we'll connect them up. Let's just compile and save that. So it'll be pretty buggy at the moment, but let's just see if if the collision sphere collides with us, we should go flying, and then we'll just have to worry about resetting our character. So if we test that, boom. Yeah, so we go flying. So it looks like, yeah, we've certainly got a few bugs, so they can obviously still kick us. Yeah, they're not a big fan. And we see we get this error here. So we might want to enable the ragdoll physics. So if we just go ahead and close that. So if we just go over to the mesh, details pane, collision, and set the collision preset to ragdoll. And then if you compile and save that and do a test. So when she kicks us, we are now doing the ragdoll effect. So we'll need to fix a few problems. So first of all, once we've been kicked, we don't want the NPC to be able to kick us again until we've been reset. So for the moment, we'll handle the reset functionality. After they've successfully kicked us, we don't want to be able to move the character. So we'll say disable movement on the character movement component. And then we'll just allow some time for us to see what the result of the kick is. So we'll just allow 5 seconds. And then we can disable physics again for the mesh. Set simulate physics mesh. We'll leave this box unchecked. Set this to false. And the player mesh will have been kicked away from its collision capsule. So what we can do is reattach it, which will bring the character back to the location, its original location. We can drag off here and say attach component to component. And we can grab a copy of this mesh and plug that into the target. And the parent will be the capsule. So we can connect that into the parent pin here. We'll reset the relative location for the mesh. So we'll drag off this pin, set relative location mesh, leave them set to 0. And when we do this, we want to go back to the viewport, select our mesh and check the location, and we can see the Z is set to -89. So when I reset this location, I want to replicate that here. And then we can do the same for the rotation. Set relative rotation mesh. And again, back in the viewport, check what your mesh rotation is set to. So 270 on the Z. So back to the event graph and set that to 270 or whatever your values are. And then we can re-enable his movement. So drag off here, set movement mode on the character movement component. And it should be okay just to set this to walking. So if we compile and save that, and we'll see the result of that. So test. Alrighty, so we get kicked out of the level, and then in 5 seconds we should be reset. Whoop. You don't get much of a chance, but we'll give it another go. Alright, cool. So we get reset after 5 seconds, and then they can kick us again. And then we just want to add a check here to see if we can still get kicked. So if we have already gone flying through the sky, we don't want to get kicked again until we've been reset. So let's add a variable of type boolean, and we can just say can get kicked. Right, so with this variable we can compile and save that. Just set the default value to true. Then we can just drag in the canGetKicked variable, get the value of that, drag off the gotKicked event branch. If we can get kicked, then we can go ahead and apply the kick functionality. And then off the true pin, you can say can get kicked. We want to set it, and we just want to set it to false. And then at the very end, after everything has been reset, we can just set that back to true. Alrighty. So if we compile and save that, give it a test. Alrighty. So we shouldn't be able to get kicked again. So it looks like that is working. Okay, so we get kicked, go flying. We're sort of knocked out. We don't get kicked while we are knocked out. Don't get kicked on the ground. Cool. So that seems to work pretty well. So if we will also check when we get kicked, any volunteers, yep, there we go, and then we'll try and move around and we can see we can look around with the camera, which is handy, so we can see how well their kicks are coming along. So now that all seems to be working, we can go back to our kick hit actor blueprint, and we just want to re-hide them in the game. So select the sphere, search for hidden, set it so it's hidden in the game, and then do the same thing for the arrow. Compile and save that. Okay, and we can go to the blueprint for this character, and we want to change this back to, so set the minimum value to 1. So now there will be a 1 in 4 chance that the NPC gets angry, charges at us, and kicks us. So just compile and save that, and everything should be good to go.